A hidden file, a dangerous choice, what would you have done? Welcome back to the channel where every silence tells a story. If you love true events, quiet heroes, and untold choices, you're in the right place. Before we dive into today's powerful story, take a moment to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss tomorrow's special episode. We drop a new one every day. And while you're here, drop a comment below and tell us, where in the world are you watching from? We love seeing this global community grow. Now, settle in. What you're about to hear isn't just a story. It's a decision made in the dark, under pressure. Sergeant Adam Kerr stood in the quiet of the night, his boots tapping gently on the cold stone floors of the Special Archives at Windsor Castle. At 34, Adam was no stranger to the demands of his duty as a royal guard. But this assignment, guarding the archives beneath the ancient walls of Windsor Castle, was far different from his usual routine at Buckingham Palace. Instead of the bustling crowds and ceremonial duties, tonight he was entrusted with a much quieter, yet equally critical responsibility. The Special Archives housed the most sensitive military documents, secrets that could alter the course of history. Files that had been carefully preserved over the years, hidden from public view, their contents known only to a select few. These archives, stored deep underground, were locked behind triple-layered security doors. The air inside was thick with the weight of secrets, and the silence was almost palpable. Even the flicker of the dim lights above seemed to respect the gravity of the place. Adam adjusted his uniform, his pristine red tunic, the black bearskin hat. Each detail was a part of the tradition that ran through his veins. Yet standing, here in the dark, surrounded by classified documents, he couldn't help but feel the isolation of the night shift. The quiet was deafening. His only company was the occasional beep of security monitors and the low hum of the ventilation system, circulating the cold, musty air that filled the underground room. Outside, the cold winds of winter battered the castle. But inside, the only thing that moved was the soft rustle of Adam's boots as he patrolled the narrow hallways, eyes scanning the dark corners of the room. It was a task that required not only precision, but also an unyielding sense of discipline. His job was simple in its execution, but complicated in its expectation. He was to remain silent, unmovable, and unreactive unless given explicit orders. No one ever visited this part of the castle. The archives were kept hidden from the public, a secret kept from the eyes of tourists and even most of the royal family. Only a handful of people had access to this vault of history. Adam's role was to ensure that nothing happened here, nothing out of the ordinary, nothing that could compromise the sensitive documents hidden away in this underground labyrinth. But as Adam paced the cold stone floors, the quiet began to feel heavy. The clock above the entrance ticked slowly, each passing second dragging him deeper into the solitude of the night. Outside, the wind howled, but inside, everything remained eerily still. And yet, this silence would not last. For Adam, the routine was ingrained in his mind. Stand guard, remain silent, follow procedure. But deep within him, a nagging feeling began to grow, something he couldn't quite place, an unease that something was not right. This was not the first time he had felt this way, but tonight, it felt different. Tonight, it felt like more than just the ordinary weight of duty. As the hour passed, the wind outside continued its mournful song, and Adam stood watch. He couldn't shake the feeling that tonight would not be like any other. It was in the way the silence lingered, in the way the cold seemed to seep deeper into his bones. For a royal guard, silence was the sound of duty. But tonight, it felt like the calm before a storm. And as the minutes passed, he could only wonder, what would the night bring? Would it be just another ordinary shift? Or would it change the course of his life forever? The silence that had filled the air in the archives was suddenly shattered. A shrill, blaring sound broke through the stillness, sending a chill down Adam's spine. It was the fire alarm. Flashing red lights and the relentless wail of the siren echoed through the hallways of the underground storage. Adam froze, his heart racing in his chest. He quickly scanned the monitors on the wall, checking for any signs of irregularity. The screen flickered, but nothing seemed out of the ordinary. The temperature remained stable, and there were no signs of smoke or fire. Yet, the alarm blared louder, the flashing red lights growing more intense. He reached for his communication device, his fingers trembling slightly as he spoke into the receiver. "This is Sergeant Kerr at the Special Archives. We've got a fire alarm going off in Sector B2. Can I get a confirmation?" There was a pause on the other end, a crackle of static. Then the voice of the operator came through. Calm. Too calm. "Just like every other time, Kerr. False alarm. Ignore it." Adam clenched his jaw, his gaze locked on the red lights flashing above him. His instincts screamed at him to do more, to act, but protocol told him to stay put. The alarm was probably a glitch, a faulty sensor, just like all the others before it. The procedure was clear. Wait for confirmation before taking any further steps. But something didn't feel right. His mind flashed back to his time in Iraq, the chaos, the warnings that were dismissed as false alarms. He had lost good men because of that, because of ignoring signals, brushing off the smallest signs of danger. It was the kind of mistake that stuck with you forever, the kind of regret that burned deep into your soul. Adam could never forgive himself for it, and now, in the stillness of the archives, he wondered if this was one of those moments. He looked at the monitor again. Still no change, no sign of danger, but the air felt different, thicker, colder. A shiver ran down his spine. His eyes flicked to the corner of the room, where the temperature sensors indicated a slight increase in heat. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but enough for Adam to notice. The temperature was rising near Storage Unit 7, right next to the files that had been classified since the Iraq War, the sensitive documents, the ones no one could afford to lose. He grabbed the clipboard from the desk, his fingers skimming over the documents in front of him. Everything seemed normal, but something about this alarm, this heat increase told him it wasn't. This wasn't a false alarm. It couldn't be. Adam's eyes flicked back to the door, the red flashing lights casting eerie shadows across the walls. There was a single moment of hesitation. His mind wrestled with the rules, with the knowledge that opening those doors without clearance would break every protocol he had sworn to uphold. It would risk his entire career. His record, his medals, everything he had worked for would be gone. The documents inside were designed to self-destruct if tampered with. If he opened the door, he might lose everything. But if he didn't open it, if he followed orders and did nothing, he risked losing something far more valuable. The truth. The truth about a missing royal guard. A guard who had once been his friend. The one who had disappeared under suspicious circumstances, rumored to have deserted his post, but Adam never believed it. There had always been something off about that story. He felt it in his gut, and now, as the temperature rose and the alarm continued to wail, he could feel the weight of that uncertainty pressing down on him. His hand hovered over the security. "Benel," but then he pulled back. He couldn't act without orders, but then as the alarm screamed in his ears, Adam knew. He had to make a choice. Follow the protocol and do nothing, or take matters into his own hands and risk everything to uncover the truth. The tension in the room grew unbearable. Adam's mind raced, torn between his duty and his instinct to protect what mattered most. And in that moment, as the flashing red lights filled the room, he understood. Some decisions could never be made by following orders. Some decisions required courage, a sacrifice of safety, and a willingness to defy the very rules he had sworn. To uphold, the choice was his, but would he make it in time? Adam stood frozen, his heart pounding in his chest. The fire alarm's wail had turned into a constant, piercing scream that rattled his nerves. His eyes locked on the security panel in front of him, fingers hovering just above the buttons. Every ounce of training, every rule he had sworn to follow, screamed at him to wait. Wait for confirmation. Don't open the door without orders. Follow the procedure. But deep down, in the pit of his stomach, he knew what he had to do. The temperature. In the room continued to climb. His sensor system, embedded in his boots and designed to track the slightest changes, was picking up a disturbing heat source emanating from storage unit 7. He couldn't see it, couldn't know for sure what it was, but his instincts told him it was more than just a malfunction. It felt like something was burning, something important. But the consequences. Adam had always been a soldier who followed the rules. Breaking protocol meant losing everything. It could mean losing his position, the Royal Guard, his medals, his honor. It could even mean a court-martial. The thought of being stripped of everything he had worked for made his stomach churn. But it wasn't just about his career anymore. It was about the truth. It was about a fellow soldier, a Royal Guard, who had gone missing years ago. The same Soldier Adam had once called a friend, now only a fading memory and a suspicious case of desertion. Could this fire be connected? Could this be the moment that revealed the truth? The files locked away in this room could hold the answers, the very files that were never meant to be seen. They could prove that his friend hadn't deserted, that something darker was at play. But if Adam opened that door, he risked losing it all. He risked losing the only evidence that could prove his friend's innocence, and it could all go up, in smoke, literally. The alarm blared louder, vibrating through the walls. His breath came in short bursts, his mind racing. He thought about the rules, follow protocol. He thought about the consequences of breaking them. You'll never be trusted again. But then, he thought about the man who had disappeared, about the secrets he had taken with him, about the promise Adam had made to himself to always seek the truth, no matter the cost. He took a deep breath, his pulse racing as the cold air seemed to thicken around him. The heat from the corner of the room was growing stronger, unmistakably real. Adam's gut twisted as he made his decision. He couldn't ignore it. He couldn't turn away. Not this time. He moved quickly, his mind set. Without a second thought, he grabbed the emergency mirror he always carried for the night shifts, an old military-grade infrared reflective mirror that was used for signaling. It wasn't part of the standard gear, but Adam had brought it along as a backup, just in case. He angled the mirror, directing it toward the heat source near storage unit 7, and allowed the infrared beam to scan the area. The mirror reflected the heat into his helmet's visor, giving him a clear view of the intensity of the fire. It wasn't much, but it was enough. He could see the flames licking at the edges of the shelves. The fire was real, and it was growing fast. If he didn't act now, everything would be lost. The documents, the evidence, everything about the case his friend had been involved in, all of it would burn to ash. Adam's mind spun. He couldn't open the door directly. He knew the security systems were designed to destroy the documents automatically if tampered with. He had no choice. He had to act without breaking the rules, but there had to be another way. A way to stop the fire without triggering the destruction mechanism. His eyes flicked to the manual controls on the wall, the ones used for emergency situations. The CO2 suppression system. It was a drastic measure, but it was the only option. If he triggered the CO2 system, it would flood the room with the gas, suffocating the flames. It would save the documents, but it would also destroy everything else inside. The archives would be lost. But perhaps, just perhaps, the one file that held the key to his friend's disappearance would be saved. With a deep breath, Adam made his choice. He pressed the button. The system hummed to life and the room went dark as the CO2 poured in, filling the space with a thick, suffocating fog. The fire was extinguished, but the cost was steep. The room, the files, and the documents were now beyond saving. But as Adam stood there watching the smoke dissipate, he could only hope that in the end, it had been the right decision. The truth, he thought, was worth more than anything else, even if it meant breaking the rules. Even if it meant sacrificing everything he had worked for. Sometimes the right decision wasn't the easiest, but it was the one he had to make. Adam stood in the dense fog of CO2, the acrid smell of the gas filling his lungs. His heart was pounding in his chest, but his hands were steady. He had done it. The fire was out. The room was silent once again, save for the faint hum of the ventilation system, now working overtime to clear the air. The flashing red lights were gone, but the weight of his decision lingered. He had saved the archives, yes, but at what cost? The room, once filled with the echoes of history, the air heavy with secrets, was now blanketed in an eerie stillness. The documents, the ones meant to be preserved at all costs, were ruined. They had been exposed to the CO2, an irreversible measure to contain the fire. The fragile, irreplaceable files were now beyond repair, their contents lost forever. But there was one file Adam had backed up in secret, one file he had copied to a secure USB months ago, just in case. The file that contained the truth about his friend, the missing royal guard. His mind raced as he took slow, deliberate steps into the now empty room. The CO2 fog was clearing, and in the faint light from the emergency backup, Adam could see the devastation. Shelves lined with destroyed documents, piles of ash where important files had once been stored. The scene was catastrophic. Everything except for the one file he had saved. His hand reached into his vest, where the USB stick was tucked safely inside a hidden pocket. He could feel its cool metal against his fingers as he pulled it out. For a moment, he just held it, staring at the small, unassuming device. It had been a risk copying the file against orders. If he had been caught, it would have meant the end of his career, possibly even a court-martial. But now, in this moment, it felt like his only lifeline. The one thing that could prove that his friend hadn't deserted his post. The one thing that could uncover the truth. Adam plugged the USB into a secure terminal hidden beneath his desk, one that had been set up for emergencies. The terminal blinked to life, and a series of encrypted files flashed on the screen. His eyes locked on the file labeled Operation Ghost. The investigation into his friend's disappearance had been classified, the details locked away from the world. But Adam had never believed the official story. He had always known something was off, and now he was about to find out if his instincts had been right. The file opened, revealing detailed records, witness accounts, military reports, and a slew of emails between top officials. Adam's fingers trembled as he scrolled through the pages, piecing together the story. What he read sent a chill through him. His friend had been part of a covert operation that had gone wrong, an operation that had gone unnoticed by most, but one that had involved a series of high-level mistakes and cover-ups. His friend hadn't deserted. He had been caught in the crossfire of a mission gone terribly wrong, a mission that had been buried beneath layers of secrecy. Adam's eyes lingered on one line, a message from the commanding officer that read, "Remove all traces of the operation. No loose ends." The words hung in the air as Adam absorbed the weight of the revelation. His friend had been a casualty of a larger conspiracy, and now Adam held the key to uncovering it, but his relief was short-lived. The sounds of footsteps echoed down the hallway outside, sharp and deliberate. Adam froze. The sound was unmistakable. Military boots, the distinct rhythm of someone approaching with purpose. The weight of the moment settled in. His actions had consequences, and those consequences were about to catch up with him. He quickly unplugged the USB, slipping it back into his vest. The terminal went dark, and Adam took one last look around the room, at the destruction he had caused. The lost documents, the damaged files. Everything had been sacrificed for one thing: the truth. And yet, the truth was a dangerous thing to hold on to. The door to the archives creaked open, and Adam stood tall, his back straight, his heart still racing but his resolve firm. Whoever was outside, whatever was coming, he would face it head on. He had made his choice. He had acted when the world stood still. Now he would stand tall, and whatever happened next, he would face it with the knowledge that he had done the right thing. Because in the end, some things were worth sacrificing everything for. Even if it meant standing alone in the face of the storm, even if it meant risking it all. The footsteps grew louder, and Adam's pulse quickened. He instinctively reached for the hidden USB in his vest. the file that held the truth about his friend's disappearance. It felt heavy, like the weight of his entire future. The door to the archives opened slowly, the creak of the hinges sounding like a ticking clock in the silence that followed. His hand froze just inches from the door. Whoever was outside, whoever was coming for him, Adam knew it wouldn't be a simple inquiry. He had crossed a line, he knew it. And now so would they. "Sergeant Kerr?" A voice cut through the tension, low and controlled, a familiar tone. It was Colonel Fitzroy. He was the last person Adam wanted to see right now. Fitzroy was as by the book as they came, a man who didn't question orders and never veered from protocol. Adam's heart sank. The timing couldn't have been worse. "Yes, sir," Adam responded, his voice steady despite the racing thoughts in his mind. He forced himself to stand tall, to appear calm, as though he hadn't just defied every rule in the book. Fitzroy stepped into the room, his eyes scanning the wreckage of the archives. The dim light flickered over the piles of charred documents, the thick layer of CO2 still hanging in the air. For a moment, the two men exchanged a look, one that conveyed more than words ever could. Fitzroy knew something was off, Adam could tell. His gaze lingered on the ruined files before turning back to Adam. "Care to explain what happened here?" "Sergeant." Fitzroy's tone was sharp, but there was a quiet calculation behind his words. Adam knew this wasn't just about the fire anymore. It was about his actions, about the choices he had made in the heat of the moment. Fitzroy was no fool. He knew the significance of what had been in this room, and now it was gone. Adam swallowed hard, fighting the urge to reach for the USB again. The file could change everything, could clear his friend's name, but it would also expose him. The truth could destroy him too. But for the first time, Adam wasn't thinking about his career or his future. He was thinking about his friend, the man who had been wronged, who had been lost to a system that didn't care about the truth. "Sir, the fire alarm was triggered," Adam began, his voice even. "I followed procedure, but I noticed a rise in temperature. Near Storage Unit 7, when I investigated, I saw the risk. I had no choice but to act." Fitzroy didn't respond right away. Instead, he took a step closer, his eyes narrowing as he studied Adam. The silence between them felt like an eternity. Adam held his ground, but inside a storm was brewing. He had made a decision that could change everything. There was no turning back now. "What about the documents, Kerr?" Fitzroy's voice was low, his words heavy with meaning. "You know what was at stake here, and you know what could happen if certain files were damaged. Do you realize the consequences of your actions?" Adam's heart raced as Fitzroy's words sank in. He knew what was at stake. He had made the choice to protect the truth, but in doing so, he had destroyed the very thing he had sworn to protect. The archives were lost, the documents were gone, but the one file he had saved, Operation Ghost, was the only piece of the puzzle that could bring clarity, that could expose the lies. He had to make sure it stayed hidden, for now, at least. "I did what I thought was right, sir," Adam said, his voice unwavering despite the anxiety gnawing at him. "I saved what I could." Fitzroy's eyes flickered, but he said nothing. For a long moment, he studied Adam as though weighing his words, considering his options. Adam could feel the tension crackling in the air. Then, without warning, Fitzroy nodded slowly, his expression unreadable. "You'll be called in for a debriefing," Fitzroy finally said, his voice firm. "There will be consequences for your actions. You know that. But for now, you're to remain in your position. Don't do anything reckless, Kerr. Understand?" Adam didn't know whether to feel relief or dread. The threat of consequences still loomed. But for now, he had bought himself time. He had saved the file, hidden it away, and most importantly, he had exposed the truth about his friend. That was something no one could take from him. "Understood, sir," Adam replied, his voice tight. As Fitzroy turned to leave, Adam felt the weight of the situation pressed down on him. He had made the right decision, but that didn't mean it would be easy. The road ahead was uncertain. The investigation would continue. The consequences would follow, and Adam would have to live with the choices. he had made. But he had no regrets. Not now. The truth was out there, and no matter what happened next, Adam had done what he believed was right. As the door closed behind Fitzroy, Adam stood alone in the cold, silent room, knowing that the hardest part was still to come. What do you think about Sergeant Adam Kerr's decision? Do you believe he made the right choice in breaking protocol to protect the truth? Or was his action reckless? In moments like these, is it better to follow orders? Or should honor and personal convictions take precedence? We've all faced decisions where the consequences are unclear. But Adam had to act fast, knowing the stakes were high. We want to hear from you. Do you think Adam did the right thing, even if it meant risking everything? Have you ever been in a situation where you had to choose between following the rules and doing what you felt was morally right? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Also, don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed this video and subscribe to the channel for more thought-provoking stories. We love hearing from our viewers, so drop a comment and let us know what you would have done in Adam's shoes. Your thoughts might just be featured in our next video. Stay tuned for more, and we'll see you tomorrow for the next chapter in this intense story.